Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Matt, it's great. Also joining us, another one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Rakush. Hey, Rakush.
What's up?
Classic. How are you doing?
Classic.
What if, like, someone came up to you guys and shortened greetings to just, like, Reets? Reets, bros.
I mean, like, you failed to get it in, like, 3 so far.
What?
Actually, you know what? Jaren, I think this has mostly just been a Discord problem for us.
Maybe.
Because stepping behind, like, the curtain, we record this podcast through Discord. And Rakush responds. It's just that he doesn't respond loud enough for his mic to pick it up for Discord. So for me and you, he just never answers.
Do you guys never hear it?
Part of the goof.
No.
So, like,
we
when I'm
never
just
do.
saying, like, sup, it never... You guys don't hear it.
No. I only get that on your the recording that you sent to me after we record the episode.
So you're telling me this whole joke that we've had for, like, the last 3 weeks is because you guys can't hear me. Amazing.
This sounds like one of the texts I read in high school where one of the characters says something under their breath, much to the lack of knowledge to the supporting characters in the scene, where Rakush, for all we know, you're probably cursing us under your breath, having to dedicate another, let's be generous, hour 20 this week to talking about our many mistakes this week. And boys, do I have a mistake to share on Mistake Zone this week? Because I opened my front door because a package came when I was in the washroom.
Oh, no.
And sitting at our doorstep was a package from Amazon. And I thought, oh, I remember ordering this. Took it to the kitchen, and now I'm holding in my hands a PlayStation DualSense limited edition wireless controller, and totally forgot I pulled the trigger on the pre-order right when I thought that these would be, less common than I believe they actually are. I know the day I ordered this on Amazon, I think a couple of seconds later you couldn't order it anymore, but over the next few weeks, I feel like these have just been restocked, and I didn't necessarily buy it for the sole purpose of hoarding and, potentially to sell down the road, because in the past, I feel like there's just something about the PlayStation anniversary releases that, I don't know, aesthetically tugs at the right nostalgia strings for me. And looking at this PlayStation DualSense box right now, because boys, of course, I'm not going to open this yet, but reviewing the box for our audio listeners right now, I don't know, just seeing how the quote-unquote cover is laid out with that old school PlayStation logo in the top right corner, really reminiscent of when I was a youth. When we were the youths, and I went into a Toys R Us and found a original PlayStation 1, not the PS1, but the original one, the brick. And I remember being super excited because we didn't have a PlayStation at the time. And I thought, okay, these are easier to mod, so I can't wait to get this modded. Boys, never got it modded.
Well,
and I believe that original PlayStation is still sitting in my brother's closet in our parents' house, but I really haven't checked yet. But when reviewing this box, I have to admit, I have fallen victim to the questionable packing practices of the Amazon factory, because unfortunately I'm looking down the left side of it and pretty dinged up. And it looks like, even though the top is sealed with the sticker, the flaps on either side of the sticker are kind of bending up. So not a perfect box, but I think nostalgia-wise, I can put this on my shelf for the moment and potentially wait until I purchase a PS5.
Oh, you don't
But
even have a PS5.
no, just because I was again harking back to the SSX blur energy, right, Matt? But I initially was going to wait until the PS5 Pro came out, and then, of course, the pricing for the PS5 Pro came out. And I think I'm sort of looking at one this holiday season, potentially towards Boxing Day here in Canada. I know it's still Black Friday season, but due to some recent announcements, I think it might be more, for me at least, beneficial to wait until Boxing Day for physical purchases. But until then, I'll look at this sealed, quote unquote, sealed, not, mint in box PlayStation DualSense controller. But
Jordan, are you rubbing the box?
Matt, you know what? I don't review sparkling water anymore, so we need to give the fans, our friends listening, some good ASMR action, if you can hear that.
Oh, God.
But typically, I know this wasn't the first time PlayStation has done an anniversary release, for their consoles, but typically when you think the original PlayStation 1 friends, what are some memories that come to your mind?
I mean, for me personally, it's not even a memory that I have, but Jaren, we had a shared friend in high school who told me one of my favorite PlayStation stories, which is when he walked into EB Games or GameStop, whatever it was called, back then when we were in high school, and he walked in and he asked, "Do you guys sell mod chips for the PlayStation?" And I don't know, that story just lives in my head whenever I think about the original PlayStation console.
That used to surprisingly happen a lot, man.
I was going to ask you, as someone who has worked at a GameStop previously, how many times were you approached for less than above counter video game resources?
So I worked there like for the 360 PS3 era, right? So like I didn't exactly hear a lot about like mod chips, but I did hear a lot of questions about like modding. And I grew up actually without the PS1. I grew up with those like knockoff consoles that had those like 501 cartridges and stuff like that. So I used to surprisingly get a lot of those kind of questions from like families that were like new immigrants, or like, they were just kind of used to that stuff. It was really fascinating. And it would always like, I mean, mind you, back then I was a little bit snarkier about these things, but nostalgia makes it seem like it was just kind of pleasant. But yeah, it was funny.
Okay. I have to admit, now that the GameStop floodgates have been opened, man, I don't want to say tragic, but I'm thinking about the Saturday Morning Arcade Clubhouse right now and how growing up within the vicinity, I feel of, I don't know, give it 10, 20 kilometers around the clubhouse, you could find, what was it, close to a dozen different GameStops. And now I believe there's only two. And
Was it really a dozen?
so the other week when they were giving out a promo card for the recent, Pokemon Trading Cards Surging Sparks release, I took my sister and went around to what I thought were the different GameStops. And we went to a particular mall, and I walked in and looked at the map and thought, oh, I haven't been into this mall since, I think the last time I was in that mall was early pandemic when I was picking up Animal Crossing New Horizons. So, a couple years later, walk into the same mall, that GameStop isn't there anymore. The GameStop down the street from that one at that plaza with the Walmart, not there anymore. And just looking it up on Google Maps, there are only two, one at the big mall and then one in that shopping plaza kind of down the road as well. And everything else from the smaller malls seem to be all closed down. And it's odd to me that I feel like there are more GameStops near the Mistake Zone HQ than the Saturday Morning Arcade Clubhouse, which kind of speaks a volume to the current state. Just because if every time I've walked into one recently, uh, it's all memorabilia, it's all figures, it's all collectibles, and still does the trick of they'll line their walls with the anime figure boxes, and when you buy them they'll take the display figure and kind of just chuck it in there, hence why I don't buy anime figures from GameStop anymore. But last question,
See,
have you guys
you
walked into
gotta
a
you gotta ask them if they've got more than one because they'll only give that to you if that's the last one left.
I think my luck has always been I'm always getting the last one since for I feel like with figures as well, they only stock like one of each, which is kind of weird. But in terms of GameStop, when was the last time you friends have walked into one?
I don't think it was that long ago because I think I was there like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, but just kind of browsing. Like there was no game or anything that I actually wanted to buy. I was planning on going for Black Friday as well, but I took a look at the flyer for this year and I don't know. It's kind of a dud. And everything I wanted was
Yeah.
also available on Prime like a week earlier, so I pretty much already bought whatever I wanted to. And yeah,
Quick consumerism update. Did you guys purchase anything for this Black Friday season? I'm guessing, just because honestly, I don't know when Black Friday is supposed to be
this
right
Friday.
now. But any purchases?
Yeah, I picked up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Ooh, fancy, fancy pants.
Yeah, I played Remake. That was good. I enjoyed it, and I've heard great things about Rebirth as far as just the actual open world elements and the gameplay and stuff. So absolutely, yeah. Like I knew I was gonna get it. Price is decent. Man, I've been waiting for Baldur's Gate 3 to drop in price, and on the PlayStation Store, it's like 20% off. And I think of course, I've been spoiled by just like, these big sales where like games will drop in price by like 50%, 60%, like the whole Steam sale kind of like effect, right? And it's actually been just kind of annoying me that Baldur's Gate 3 just refuses to drop in price more than like 20% off. Good for them that they don't need to drop the price. But man, I just really want that game to be a lot cheaper than it currently is.
I think you just need to bite the bullet. That's the same thing with me and Sekiro from last year, where even though Sekiro is a pretty older game by, not super old, but still
Oldish.
in terms of sales standards, it hasn't dropped below that $40 price point. So I think eventually, Rakush, if you want to play it, you just have to bite the bullet.
See, Jaren, $40 I can do, right? If that were its full price at $40. Its full price right now is something like 90 something dollars on the PlayStation Store.
Ooh, that's rough.
That's why I'm waiting for it to go on sale. Like if it were $40, I could make a convincing case to go and buy it. It's just like it has not even gone down below like $75. And that's where I'm like, all right, like it needs to drop a little bit more than it currently is. For what it's worth, it might have dropped on the Steam store or like on PC. I haven't actually checked the price there.
No, the lowest it's ever been on Steam is like 20% off as well.
Yeah, so I mean, again, good for them. I'm glad that they're making enough or money on it to like continue not putting it on sale. I'm really happy for them. I'm just not happy for me.
Fair. But wallet safe for now. So, Rakush, when do you plan to sink your teeth into Final Fantasy?
So currently I'm playing Yakuza Kiwami. I
Right.
know we're going to chat about that in a bit, but once I finish that one up, I'll see if any of the other Yakuza games are on sale, or maybe I'll play it on the Game Pass because I know most of them are there. But not long from now, I think in like the next month or so is probably when I'm going to start up Final Fantasy, because I have been looking forward to playing that game since like February of this year. So yeah.
Okay, fair. But Rakush, surprise, you opened the floodgates. We're now in Yakuza territory. Rakush, how are you being like a dragon?
Man, okay. So I briefly spoke about this last week or the week before that, just that I've started playing this. I'm going to chat about this more. And I'm really happy that I started playing this game. I think I'm not nostalgic for the game. I am nostalgic for just some of the vibes of the game from the trip that I took to Japan earlier this year, right? Like going to Don Quixote in the game, it just kind of hits a little differently. And I'm like, Don Quixote, so cool. Or like, just even just like, walking through this map, which is like, by modern standards very small, but big enough for me that it's like, just a comfy game, and one that you can easily like navigate. You don't have to feel overwhelmed by anything. And at the same time, like, they've packed it with a lot of funny stuff, a lot of cool side quests and things like that. The RC Racer thing is like one of my favorite things. It's one of the funniest games I've played in a minute. And I can definitely see why people are so charmed by the kind of like humor and like, just the tone of this game as well. Uh, and yeah, like, I think also I just kind of wanted to really solidify what I disliked about the TV show. And yeah, like, it absolutely has solidified the fact that I don't think they did a good enough job of making the city feel like a proper city.
Hope so.
There's so many side characters that are missing, so many side quests that just, because of the format limitations, you can't really do a lot of that stuff. One of the cooler things about this game with the tone and everything is that you have a lot of these like serious characters in absolutely absurd and funny situations. I don't think there was any of that, if at all, in the live action series. So I feel like just kind of like the overall tone, the environment, the atmosphere that the games have that really make the game something very different than just kind of like, this old game. Like, it differentiates it from the rest is this atmosphere, it's this tone, it's this humor. And I felt like the show just kind of like missed that entirely. The casting seems fine to me, even like, while playing this game and then like thinking back to the TV show, because the characters are just kind of like sort of serious, except for in the absurd situations. It's just that we never see the absurd situations. But yeah, like, the cast was fine. But yeah, like, I'm glad I'm playing this game to better appreciate, just kind of what this story is and who these characters are and stuff as well. And yeah, like, I'm 6 chapters in right now. I don't think I have that much left. I mean, I might be like halfway through it with like side quests and stuff going on. Maybe like 2/3, I think. But yeah, like, I'm making some good progress in the story and everything as well. And yeah, it feels nice. It feels like, a product of a more ambitious era of game design. Not technically or anything like that, but just with like some of the swings that they take with like the story and the characters and, things like that. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think when you guys were talking about the Yakuza, Amazon TV series or just series a few weeks ago, I think that was what my biggest hesitation to actually go and check out the program is that balance of, you do have the Yakuza series that presents this pretty, I don't want to say deep or heartfelt story. There is definitely a story there that has its serious moments, that has a pretty harsh tone depending on, where you are in the story or even where you are in the franchise. But I feel like that's always been balanced by, as you said, Rakush, all the side missions, the side characters, and just general wacky hijinks that really give the Yakuza series this unique feel that isn't necessarily, I guess, digestible in terms of a mainstream program that you might find on Amazon, where, for better or for worse, when I think Yakuza, I think of something that is more anime adjacent, where I think of, House Husband or something around that tone of, tongue in cheek while still having that serious backbone for you to actually become invested in and feel for these characters. But if you're only focusing on, the gritty, the story, that storyline, I think that becomes a lot more unappealing to me, where, I don't know, growing up personally, Yakuza has always been this franchise that is, I don't know, do you guys remember it being referred to as the Japanese Grand Theft Auto in a way.
In a way, yeah.
Sans the car. But that was always the legend towards this franchise that, as North American players, we only really heard about. But, finally getting my hands on Yakuza 0, especially at the start of the pandemic, after you heard this legend of this gaming franchise, it's nothing like, well, I don't want to say it's nothing like Grand Theft Auto. It has some similarities in terms of formula, but it does stand on its own as something wacky, as something that does go through this balancing act where,
Yeah.
if that balancing act isn't present in the TV show, I think that becomes something that becomes less and less interesting for me personally. And with how Yakuza has kind of solidified itself in mainstream North American gaming circles, I feel like it's, with all the trailers from like a Dragon and even Yakuza Pirates in Hawaii, it does look like it leans more heavily into that tongue-in-cheek, like the more wacky, the more zany now, where the TV show, for it not to lean kind of similar to that, becomes just so jarring in terms of promotion. But Rakush, with you playing Kiwami right now, do you plan to go run the gauntlet, or do you eventually plan to just jump to the more modern titles?
I mean, I've asked myself that question. I don't think I have an answer for that just yet. It'll just entirely depend on franchise fatigue.
Right.
I think a big part of it would also be just like, how manageable the rest of this game is going to be. Like, do I want to play it as a completionist? Do I just want to finish the story, finish, the side quests that are coming up as I get, like, make progress and things like that? Or do I just, do I go for just the story? I don't know. So we'll see. I am kind of interested in trying out Like a Dragon, because that just looks and plays and feels, from the looks of it, how it plays, it looks very different. And I am very curious about that and how they tie it into this setting as well, because to me the setting is still the most important thing. I played a little bit of 6 when it was originally on the Game Pass years ago. So yeah, I mean, it's not the first time I'm playing a Yakuza game, but it's the first time I've gotten deep into a Yakuza game. So let's see, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess before we move on, and I'll have more once I finish the game. But one of the things that has really helped Yakuza, earlier, in our when we were 10 to 15 years old, there was still a sort of mystique around Japanese games, and how we found out about them and stuff was still through your traditional means, right? Like TV, magazines. It was the early days of the internet. We were still kind of seeing some things off the internet, but even then it was scans of Japanese magazines and stuff, right? What was I forget the Japanese magazine that everyone used to quote scores out of, but
you mean Famitsu?
Famitsu,
which they still quote scores
yeah,
out
yeah,
of?
Yeah. But that was such a thing, right? Such a big thing back in the day for us as well. And I feel a lot of what you were saying about Yakuza getting compared to a Grand Theft Auto and stuff was a product of sort of this mystique, right? Where it's how do you convince a North American audience that's still not desensitized or used to the more sort of
the Japanese
slapstick Japanese humor, and things like that. GTA, right?
I mean, the Hostess Club being such a element of these games, how do you properly explain? And then listening back to all these retrospects of game journalists at the time trying to sell a Yakuza review to a North American user while still trying to be respectful to the cultural differences, seems like such a humongous task that even I can't fathom to do
for sure
right now.
Yeah.
But
and I think the access to information with the internet has actually helped Yakuza become more popular, right? Because Now it's not something that needs to be compared to a Grand Theft Auto. It's something that can just easily stand on its own 2 feet. And I think that started with Yakuza 3 and 4, so like the PS3 era. But yeah, it's one of the rare, I would say, game franchises that got more popular once it got demystified. And in time, like, as audiences have gotten more used to, like, some of the things in these Yakuza games, it becomes a lot easier to jump into and play. And yeah, like, I'm glad that happened. I think it's absolutely a franchise that deserves its flowers, as it's been getting for like the last half decade as well. So yeah, I'm glad for that. And I'm glad I picked the game up, hoping to beat it soon. But yeah, let's see how much time I actually have to beat it this week with real life.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Matt, going from the streets of Yakuza to the board games of Cryptid, I don't actually know what this game is about, but it seems like you've gotten your hands on it this week. Matt,
Yes.
what is Cryptid?
So, Cryptid is a logic-based board game.
Oh, but I'm a dummy, Matt.
Jaren, this is not the game for you then.
Well,
Because I ended up at Cryptid because I was kind of looking for games that were in the wheelhouse of games like Clue. Like that sort of like deduction style game. And Cryptid is one of the ones that I ended up on. And this game is so, I don't know, like the word I'm thinking of right now is like it's so violently logic that it was surprising to me.
okay.
Because the game Cryptid is, in terms of theming, you are people who are trying to find a cryptid. And you have you have like these sets of clues that let you find the cryptid on this, it's sort of like randomly generated. You have like these map tiles that have a bunch of hexes on them, and you kind of like slide them together, similar to like how you can slide together a Settlers of Catan board. But depending on how you like slide them together, there are like certain configurations, and it's not purely randomly generated, but there's like a bunch of preset formations that of the board that are given to you by like this manual, and then everybody who's playing, depending on how many people are playing, they're all given an individual clue. So, for example, like the board itself has like different types of tiles where it's like, oh, this tile is like a forest, this tile's a desert, this tile's like water or whatever. And the way the game works is that, like I said, everybody gets their own individual secret clue. Like I would get something if we three were playing. I would get something that's like, okay, the cryptid is on a desert tile or a water tile. And then, Jaren would get something that's like, hey, the cryptid is within one space of a mountain. And then Rakush would get something like, oh, it is within 3 spaces of a building. Something like that. And with the way that the clues are given from like this manual and the way that the tiles are laid out, there is only one actual tile where the cryptid can be. And you are then probing each other for information, asking, hey, like, player, is this a place a cryptid could be? And, you kind of just submit information that way. Or, inversely, you could be like, okay, I believe the cryptid is here, so I'm confirming that this is a place I think the cryptid could be based on my clue. And the game is basically, like, the game is covering basically 2 skills. One is, straight up deduction on eliminating clues that players could have and narrowing it down to like I said, find the cryptid. And then the second part is kind of your own ability to bluff on what your clue actually is. Because, you're trying to protect the information that you have to make it harder for anybody else to, of course, win.
Okay.
But I don't know, the game is very interesting. Like, there's a lot of, like I said, logic to be played with here. I don't think the design of the board itself is particularly good.
Oh.
Like, aesthetically, I don't really think that the game is very pleasing. It is, I almost feel like this game had to have been designed by a programmer or someone who is like that type of field, because it is so, like, mechanically like efficient with its design that it almost seemed like the art was secondary in nature.
That kind of seems unfortunate, just because from at least the game you were describing, I think it would lend itself to at least some accompanying visuals.
Like I definitely think visuals like really could have been improved here, but mechanically, I think that this game is very fun. I think that like unfortunately, this is a type of game that does not have elements of luck in it,
Right.
which is, I think, very unfortunate for board games. Because I don't know how you guys particularly feel about this kind of thing, where a board game is very much just as itself a social experience. You're going to be playing it with other people for the most part, and I think that a game like Cryptid, which is so logically based, there's no element of luck at all. Like, it is purely who is the best deductionist, they will win this game. And I feel like for most, like, groups of people, there is going to be somebody who is, just like a better person at, like, deduction. And I wonder, like, what you guys feel in terms of, like, how much luck do you think should be in, I guess, like, board games like this in general?
So, do you define like a dice roll as luck?
I think, yeah, a dice roll could be luck. Because, like, anything that, like, evens a playing field, whether, yeah, it is through a dice roll, it is through, you can only search on places where you have, you've drawn certain cards. Or, just basically anything like that. Like, how much luck do you think should be in it? Like, do you think it should be, like, Mario Kart levels of luck? Or, just, like, how far on that scale do you think it should go?
I think there should be some element of luck, right? Or like one feature that is based on luck. Like you said, like pulling out like a trump card or like, a coin toss or, something like that. Or rolling the dice. Like that to me seems fine. To not have it entirely feels more role-playing than board games, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it feels puzzly almost instead, right?
I think even with like a puzzle, you can have an element of luck sometimes with like just like accidentally stumbling into a solution.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, Matt, regarding how much luck I prefer in a board game, it really does depend on what company you're with, of course, where, I'm not going to stand here and say, no, it should be one or the other, but I feel like personally in my, I guess, for lack of a better term right now, attention span, I think I do gravitate towards games that have, a bit more luck-based either elements and mechanics, just in order to ease into gameplay more easily. And I think have a quicker turnaround time for everyone to get into it, where I think, Matt, every time you bring a board game to the mistake zone, I always ask, or at least I'll try to ask, what's the turnaround time from, introducing the rules and mechanics to everyone to what you believe is that point that everyone has a pretty okay grasp of the gameplay and I wouldn't say playing at an optimal level, but you're playing at a level where everyone kind of has a chance. So, in other words, how many quote unquote beginner games would you have to go through with Cryptid before you think the mechanics are just well established between all your players, of general skill level?
I think that honestly, one game is enough for you to, like, 1.5 games is enough to fully grasp like how important every action is. Because in terms of rules, there isn't very many. It is literally you are given a clue on where the cryptid is. Everybody else is given a clue. On your turn, you can either accuse or you can like ask somebody, hey, is this tile where the monster is? Or do you think this is where the monster could be? Or you are going to say, hey, I think the monster could be here. And then you're able to like ask everybody if they think that.
Okay.
And that is like all the gameplay. And I think by the time you're like halfway through a game, you will realize, oh no, I've given away so much information, or this person is like obfuscating very well, or oh no, I've made a mistake in my logic. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And I think like one game to 1.5 games is like how long you really need to be able to play the game at like a competent level.
Okay, you're already making me nervous about playing this game, and I'm not even playing. But second follow-up question that I always ask you when you bring a board game here, in terms of, you talked about the at least aesthetic and the design, but in terms of the quality of the physical board game itself, how would you describe what's in your hand and what you're playing with?
I mean, in your hand, really, you only have like these like circular or cubic kind of like tokens. I wouldn't say this game, is of high material quality, but I wouldn't say it's of low material quality.
Okay.
I think like this is like firmly in the middle. Kind of like I said earlier, this game feels like it was, in terms of like art and I guess like physical quality, was designed just to like be able to play this game. And it is, not reaching any farther or higher up than it needs to be, but it's not like, not low balling, low rolling. I'm not sure what word to use here, but it's not like, kind of throwing that in the gutter. Like it's a nice medium.
All right, fair enough. And my final question, Matt, when you say cryptids, what kind of cryptids are we dealing with here, bro?
See, okay, Jaren, the cryptid that is on the box is not really a Loch Ness monster. Is Ogopogo the one that's like a snake?
Huh. I'm not actually sure. While I look this up, Rakush, when I say cryptid, what's the first cryptid that comes to mind?
I think like Matt kind of stole it because Loch Ness is the first one that comes to my mind.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, same question.
I'd say like Yeti is the second one. Sorry.
Yeah, like for me, it is either Bigfoot or the Mothman.
Yeah,
Mothman.
I immediately go to Mothman when someone says cryptid. But I honestly have... I'm looking at an Ogopogo right now. How is this just not the Loch Ness Monster? What's the difference? Is one Canadian?
I think that the Ogopogo is purely snake. And in my head, the Loch Ness Monster is like long head, like, and it has like an actual body.
Fair.
Like
Brontosaurus
looks like
versus... Right.
Yes,
Okay.
Lapras is like a short-necked Ogopogo, or short-necked Nessie in my head.
Damn, Ogopogo's Canadian, boys? Man, I feel bad for not knowing it.
I did not know Canada had a cryptid.
Yeah. I think that's the only reason I know what an Ogopogo is.
Fair enough. Not patriotic.
Yep.
So it's Ogopogo, that's the cryptid. Matt, are there other cryptids, or is it just Ogopogo adjacent?
No, Ogopogo, honestly, it is only on the cover of the box. Like I said, the design elements of this game are like so middle.
Okay. So you're saying opportunity for you to print your custom pieces? Yes, no? Okay. Matt, final question. If you're going to print your own cryptid for use in Cryptid, which one would it be?
Ooh, I think the one that like fits the most in terms of like the environments that they have in this game would have to be like, like a Bigfoot or Yeti type creature.
Okay. Is the environment just like terrain, like that mountain terrain, forest terrain, or?
Yeah, it's there's like 5 terrains, which is water, forest, mountain, desert, or swamp.
Fair.
And I feel like, I can imagine Bigfoot in any of those.
I mean, if he's in the water, you have to do a scuba diver variant, which I think is pretty cool. Sorry, I cut you off there, Rakush. What's up?
Is Slenderman a cryptid?
I think Slenderman isn't, because I thought a cryptid has to be an animal.
Yeah, it was either like an animal or like extraterrestrial, right?
Oh, now we're going deep into cryptid lore and dynamics that I think is out of my scope or wheelhouse for this program.
Man, I'm actually going to go and listen to the last podcast on the left after this because they have a lot of episodes on cryptids. If anyone else wants to, listen to us first and then go listen to them.
Fair enough. But Matt, final thoughts on Cryptid, the board game?
I think that Cryptid is so logic-based that if that is your thing and you have a group of, very logic-based people, it is definitely worth playing. If you want something that's more luck-based, I would say something like Search for Planet X is where you should go. because it is, does have that like logic base, but there are elements of luck in there that you can even the playing field with, and it's still a very fun game.
Okay. Or if you're like me, who likes flashy, bright colors and stylized introduction sequences while still having that cryptid adjacent flair, there's always the Dandadan.
Jared, I am so happy you actually transitioned to that because as you guys were talking about cryptids, I'm like, man, I really hope Jared does that.
It's so satisfying when somebody lands the ship.
Lands the transition.
Lands a
Yeah,
plane.
phenomenal transition. A plus. Love it.
Thanks. I mean, the transition from Yakuza to Cryptid, not the best, but this episode of Dandadan, I believe I've got this funny feeling, episode 8, and, just to quickly go through this was more so a rom-com or, the romance-based episode compared to some of the shonen action ones that we've seen in the previous arc with Silky, or even emotional with episode 7 in particular. But this was your classic misunderstanding between Momo and Okarun, plus Ira being herself from what's been established so far, still playing that, not necessarily unfortunate, but that justice heroine who is kind of, would you say, the word's slipping me right now, but oblivious to actually what's going on or is so caught up in her world. But I think just watching as the episode progresses, especially the first half, play out like a typical romance anime with that misunderstood archetype, I don't know. It didn't really do much for me just because it is such a well-worn trope that to see it here in such a stylized anime didn't really push any buttons for me. And then we transitioned into the actual shonen aspect of them being teleported into the school environment where Momo is being chased by a monster and Okarun and Ira are being chased by some aliens, with the final shot of Ira awakening to Silky's powers and her stylized demon form. So I think an episode that is kind of all over the place, but unfortunately when it does trek alongside the romance adjacent archetypes, that's where, for something that at least to me is pretty unique, just becomes pretty generic, where I've seen my fair share of misunderstandings in romance anime, and this still continues to do that while not doing anything new. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of bored of the misunderstanding just because you kind of know how that will play out. But Rakush, any thoughts on episode 8?
I think a bit of a bridge episode to the next arc. So not really much development as far as like the plot and stuff is concerned. It had some neat character moments. Like they still kind of are doing like the mirror sort of like scenes between like Momo and Okarun and stuff. So like, yeah, it's doing like nice things, but yeah, it's not meant to be one of the strongest parts of the series,
right?
Or like the strongest part of the season, I would say. It's just kind of setting up everything for what I'm assuming is the final arc of this season. And
okay,
because yeah, we're at episode 8, and I mean, I don't know what else they would fit into 3 episodes, like unless they rush something or like end on a cliffhanger, I guess. But
I mean,
yeah,
with this episode establishes that Momo and then Okaru and Ira have their own things going on. So even if you have an episode dedicated to each trying to outsmart their respective villain, again, I haven't read the manga, so I don't know how it's going to play out. But I would assume an episode for each plus your kind of epilogue to this arc. That would seem like they're a good place to end the season. But yeah, I think the strongest part of the episode for me, other than seeing Ira's, demon design at the end, was just the beginning at, Granny Ayasi's house and just seeing how Ira is in that situation, accusing everyone to be a demon. I think that was the most enjoyable part for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess without going too much into it, Rakush, seeing Ira's demon form at the end, any thoughts on how that reveal is handled in the anime?
I thought it was cool. To be honest with you, something I never actually picked up on reading the manga was how identical her form looks to Okarun's demon form. So that was like a neat little touch, I think, that I don't even know if it was like a touch as much as just something I missed the first time around. So that was cool. And honestly, yeah, like just kind of like going back to how this was a bridge episode as well. The last episode was really heavy, right? So like you do kind of need something like this to just balance out the things a little bit, like balance out the mood a little bit. So it's okay. Like I think like you're right, it's not the strongest thing in the world, but it's not something that's gonna make me want to stop watching the series. So yeah.
Fair enough. And that final say, what do you think of the misunderstanding trope in romance anime?
I mean, that's a classic, isn't it? Like, do you really have a romance anime if you don't have a misunderstanding?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Man.
I think this is the second or the third series this season that has a misunderstanding trope in it.
I'm pretty sure this is consecutive year where misunderstanding tropes run rampant. But as Matt said, classic staple. Shouldn't expect less, but I think that's on me for kind of trying to expect more. But with Dandadan out of the way, I know you guys have been talking about it for the last 2 weeks now. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but Arcane, current season done?
Yes, current season, Arcane in and of itself is as a series completed.
Okay. Rakush, did you finish the series as well?
Yes, I watched it yesterday.
Well, I leave the floor to you two gentlemen about some Arcane discussions. Of course, got to mark the spoilers here. Final thoughts. Go ham. I probably won't watch it anytime soon. But Matt, Rakush, what did you think of the conclusion to Arcane, or at least the stories being told in this installment of Arcane?
I mean, I'm sure we're going to go into more detail on this, but I think as an overall piece, I am very satisfied with what Arcane ended up being. I think that this is a very fun series to watch. I think that, you get a lot out of it for being invested in the League universe, but it is still, I think, a story that's very understandable and enjoyable, even if you are not at all interested in the League universe.
Low entry point.
And I think really my biggest gripe overall with the series is that me and Chris have both been saying, I guess, for the past 2 episodes, which is that it does feel like kind of rushed towards the second season. But overall, I do think that as a package, Arcane was very well done.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I would start with my thoughts as well. I think this season could have used one more act.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of things that I felt they could have filled 3 episodes with. I don't want to say easily, but I think they could have filled 3 episodes with, because it did feel like we were jumping a lot. And it's kind of what happened, for example, with Game of Thrones in the last couple of seasons, where it's just you're fast traveling from one place to the next, and it's happening at such a crazy pace versus what was set up in previous episodes in previous seasons, that it got a little bit tough to kind of follow along with a few things. Maybe this is just me, but one of the side effects of how rushed it was is that the series is done, and I don't think I have a great idea of what the Arcane generally is. I know it's some sort of just magic, but I don't think for a series that's quote unquote finished, they gave us enough information on the Arcane, right? If tomorrow, for whatever reason, there's no other League of Legends story on Netflix, where do you find out what the Arcane is? Does that stand alone by itself? I think that to me was probably one of the biggest effects of how rushed everything was, is that in this season the world building kind of took a little bit of a backseat. as opposed to like how season 1 was so heavily focused on like, this is the world that you're getting introduced to. You don't have to keep introducing people to the world in season 2. I get that part. But like, there's a lot of things happening that I don't think we saw enough impacts of throughout like Zon and Piltover for my liking personally.
Like, I think for me, the Mel storyline felt very rushed. I think of all the stories that were, you know, throughout like Arcane's, I guess, like run, Mel's storyline felt the most rushed. But I don't think that really too much had to be gone into for the Arcane specifically. I think it is okay to be established enough as it being, you know, a mystical magic thing. Because even if you dive into like heavy League lore, the explanation for magic within that universe is still pretty like out there, and I don't think that that would be interesting for a lot of people.
I mean, fair, right? But I don't think it was defined in even simple terms.
Yeah,
I think like, even if they simplified it, I think they just kind of needed to stand on some kind of business with that. Like, you've made the call, you've simplified it for a wider audience. Sure, okay. I don't even think they did that. Like, you have a little bit of an understanding of, like, you know, what hex tech is, what the anomaly is. But it doesn't dive into it that much. And I feel like that's where the finale kind of like struggled for me a little bit. However, I know, like, I feel like we've started with a little bit of a gripe or a complaint.
Yeah.
I actually, like, I still really, really like this show. And I really like, you know, season 2 as well. And for all the concerns that I did have about like paying off on everything, I don't think they did pay off on everything. I think there was more setup for future things. I still really enjoyed it, right? Like, these gripes are more about just like knowing that this series has the potential to do more was like, and not seeing them do that more was like kind of like the criticism mainly on my end. But overall, like, I mean, one of the notes that I had for Arcane to chat about was the animation quality on this finale. Holy shit.
Yes.
Like, how good was that? One of the best pieces of animation I've seen in years. And like
I think it like really paid, like in this last arc especially.
The last episode specifically, so again, spoiler territory, all of like the Victor parts, right? Especially like, I don't know what like the alternate reality that he's in is called, or the alternate space is called, but like it's kind of like space basically. Everything like they did with him and Jason, that part, and like how they designed it, and just like it felt, I mean, I don't know if it was actually hand drawn or not. I would love to see the BTS on that, but it felt like every frame had an impact and no frame felt hidden or like, you know, like it was lacking or anything like that. And that's just awesome.
Yeah, like that one shot in particular when they are in like the like hex tech space of basically God Victor in front of like the like almost like a sun or moon or something. This is so good. I loved how that looked.
Like that honestly, as an entry point sort of thing, right? If someone's like, oh, I'm not into League of Legends, does not matter. You get to see some of the best animation that you've ever seen in your life. And I think like that finale is, I'm going to rewatch this series probably pretty soon, because I did forget a lot of things from season 1, and I want to watch everything as a group, because I actually want to see if there's like stuff I missed in season 2 that you could have picked up on with season 1 knowledge. But I'm sure like once I get back to that scene, it's going to stand out for me for a long time as like a benchmark for conversations around like the best animation that I've ever seen. And I mean, like that was phenomenal. And if any future series have that same style, oh my god, like it's only going to get better. So I'm really excited for that. As long as the budget stays the same, I guess it's only going to get better.
I mean, even going past just like the kind of like animation quality itself, I actually really like the kind of story quality that went into episode 7 specifically.
Is that the horny jail scene?
That is not the horny jail scene. This is the alternate timelines episode.
Yeah. The one with like the random French song playing.
Yes.
Okay.
That random French song is popping off on on YouTube right now.
I'm not surprised.
Yes, for like the people who like don't know, every single Arcane season 2 episode was designed with a music piece in mind. And they Riot has like their like I think it's like Riot music channel or something like that on YouTube. And of all the season 2 kind of music videos that they've thrown together, that is currently the third most like played song on that channel for the Arcane season 2 stuff. I think right now it's topped by Isha's song and the one of them about like Silco or something. But
By the way, sorry, did you mean episode 6 or 7? Because I'm pretty sure that was episode 6, the more I think about it.
Isha's song?
No. You're talking about the alternate reality one, right? With Echo?
Yeah, the alternate reality one is episode 7 because like I think that the episode 7s for both season 1 and season 2 are my favorite episodes. Maybe because they just focus on like Echo because I like Echo as a character, but episode 7 is one, just a really fun kind of like look at what could happen, It's a nice what if episode.
Yeah.
And I know they weren't trying to be, but this episode was really funny for me just because of the two-sided nature of this episode where, you have your like romance slice of life like half with, Echo.
Yeah.
And then it just every so often will just cut over to basically Jace torture porn.
In like an alternate reality. Yeah, like
dude, I loved that gap moe of this episode.
Like Jace literally got dumped into one of those like rage games that you and Jaren were talking about a couple of weeks back. And like as that's happening, I'm just watching that. I'm like, yeah, I've seen Twitch streams of this game before. This is crazy. And I was like fully half expecting him to like drop down at one point, but now he like made it on the first try, I guess. Jaren, I guess for your reference, this song, it's from Stromae, who's like a French singer, pop singer. He's done some like all-time cool like French songs and stuff as well. If you're not going to watch the series, it's worth listening to this song at least. So I do recommend that for you, Jaren.
But
back to the alternate reality animation and stuff. Yeah, I mean, like so much of our complaints, Matt, were like around how rushed everything felt, but that felt like that sort of final deep breath before like, having to like jump into all the finality of the stuff, right? And I think I appreciated it from that perspective. Although I will say like the first, I would say like 5-10 minutes of that story were just a little bit jarring to go from like episode 6 to that, but it makes sense. And
yeah, I mean, I think it's filling in like that same kind of thing that you guys were saying about Dandadan. Like it's kind of like the bridge episode.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, I think like, it was a really nice look. That French song did throw me off a little bit. I don't know why. I think it's just kind of like, it's such a video game thing to do, to like, just have like this international sort of like poppy song just like pop in. I don't know. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. But yeah, it was just kind of like I got a chuckle out of it because to me, like, that was still one of those indicators. Like, yeah, this is still a video game franchise. And yeah, like, that was nice. I wanted to talk to you about Heimerdinger since we're chatting about this alternate reality stuff as well. And
yes.
So, again, heavy spoilers now as well. It's heavily implied that Heimerdinger is dead or missing.
Yes.
You don't see the body.
Yes. Like I said before, this is like one of those things where you are going to look at it differently if you are someone who is like into League lore or someone who is into Arcane itself.
Yeah.
I
think this is the first moment where I was like, okay, yeah, you absolutely have to separate the two.
I mean, do you?
I think so, because you're killing off a champion, right? Like, I think because for me, it's like there's a certain permanence to a character death. So with like Heimerdinger, with Jace, with Mbessa, right? Like these characters kind of die. I don't think Mbessa is a champion, but you know what I mean. Like,
Mbessa is a champion.
Mbessa is a champion.
Well, I think recently became a champion.
Yes. Side note: Mel's going to be the next champion apparently. So yeah.
So this is what I was saying. Like, this is a difference in perspective of knowing League lore and not knowing League lore, right? Where I am now very interested in Heimerdinger's story because, looking into League lore now, Yordles can't die like that.
Sure.
A Yordle can only die once their natural lifespan is gone.
Mm-hmm.
If a Yordle is killed, they respawn in whatever the place Yordles is called.
Okay. Yordle heaven.
Uh-huh. Well, not even like Yordle heaven, because they're not dead. It's more so
yeah.
you respawn back in your house. And we kind of talked about it before, kind of based off like what's happened and towards the end, specifically with the Swain Crow showing up at the end. I think I agree with you now, Rakush, that I think Noxus is the next major storyline.
I'm really excited for that, by the way.
Mm-hmm. And, with Heimerdinger, the thing happening to Heimerdinger basically getting snapped, I really hope that Yordles become the kind of glue or like the central like structure of the
Runeterra
interconnected
story.
the wider League story, because I think it would be really like interesting if Heimerdinger respawns in Yordle land, or whatever. I'm just gonna call it Yordle land because I can't remember what it's called, and he's just like recounting Arcane, and then somebody else starts like recounting the Noxus story or something like that, because I feel like that'd be like an okay glue for putting everything together.
I mean, I don't know if you need any more glue than what has been set up in this series, personally.
I don't think you need it, because like the Swain thing is really such a hard like clue.
Oh yeah, big clue
towards Noxus,
and we will get to that in a second. I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, there was a certain impact to Heimerdinger dying. Let's say in quotes, dying, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a certain impact to it for Echo's character growth, for what his motivation is in the last 2 episodes. I think it's a good redemption arc for Heimerdinger as well, as someone in season 1 who was just, from what I remember, like pretty anti like experimentation sort of thing, or experimentation without like all the facts. And for him to then kind of take this risk at the end and to push it further and to push it further, like I felt like that was a good character arc for him. And I think this is also why like I'm fine with kind of separating this from the video game lore, because it's okay. I think like it's okay for these two things to live separately, and it opens up the possibility for more things, right? Like for example with Victor and Jace, where are those guys? Like have they? I mean, they don't seem dead. They just seem missing.
Yo, they just like Hextech space tripping.
Yeah, they're just like broing it out. It's like Bill and Ted and Hextech space.
You know what? Okay, once I finished Arcane, one of the things I did was I basically just like ate Arcane memes for a whole week, and kind of like going back to something that you mentioned earlier. I kind of generally agree with the internet that the end scene with Jace and Victor was more romantic than the jail scene with Vi and Caitlyn.
It was a better love story. It absolutely was.
Yes.
And also, Doug, okay. I mean, I don't know how much we can discuss about this horny jail scene, but why the fuck was it so horny?
You had to have the Sesbian Lex in
No,
there.
I understand that. I understand that. But like And Jerry, this is like, I mean, this might seem like a call out, sorry. But like, just to kind of like loop you into this conversation, there's this jail scene where like Vi and Caitlyn just start making out with each other, okay? Before it gets into like the sex. But like, they start making out with each other. And for some reason, for like this 30 seconds, it's like a super close up on them kissing. And it's just like so extremely animated with like very clearly extra frames. Like whoever was animating that added like some extra mustard on that shit, and I'm trying to figure out why. I do not think it was necessary.
I don't know, from the circles that I've been frequently just to see the engagement coming out of that, I think I know why it was necessary. Got to appeal to your broad fan base, Rakush. From what little I know of League of Legends and their fan base, they like their character ships, and sometimes you got to shout out that portion of the fan base when you have a production this big, where you're trying to get as much eyes as you can. Because, Matt, what was it again? What's the estimate of how much production costs were for this?
It's like 250 mil.
Yeah, gotta make that up somehow.
249 mil spent on that kissing scene.
Yo, people love their violin.
It's just like it just hit at a moment as well where I'm like, hey, yo, like there's some serious shit happening in the world. Like y'all are just okay, cool. But then like it keeps going. And I was like, all right, sure. Again, like I'm not gonna yuck anybody's yum. I was just finding it super amusing how much care went into that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the animation quality, right? Like we were talking about that.
Honestly, very weirdly, I felt like so that happened in episode 8. I feel like everything else around episode 8 was such a lull compared to 7 and 9.
Yeah. I feel like episode 8 was trying to set up the finale in a way that like
Yeah.
I think that's where it's sort of like the fast travel issues started coming along. But yeah, I know like we've been talking about this for a while. Matt, I kind of want to just talk to you about Warwick's story, and I do want to talk about what's coming up next. But
Yes.
Warwick's story, we already had some concerns about like his look. They sort of fixed it, but then like they sort of unfixed it.
I don't think they fixed it.
I think I think the silhouette got fixed, but then like all of the Victor stuff that was added to Warwick made it worse, like far worse, personally.
Yes. I think that I think episode 9 Warwick looked a lot like Galio. And that kind of bothered me.
He did not look like Warwick. And I think like it was such a drastic change to this character as well. And it also kind of, to be honest with you, ties into one of my complaints about the finale. So in League game terms, they decided to go all random, all mid for this scene versus like, doing like 3 lanes between like Zion on Piltover, right? Like they kind of consolidated all of the action into this one spot just so you could get all the champions into the scenes.
Yeah.
But then I think part of that also is that Warwick's story got tied into Victor's story around it. I think it was end of episode 6 or like during episode 5 and 6 where it got tied in. And I just felt like it wasn't my favorite part of the story. And I don't think there was really a good payoff to it. I don't think there was a good reason to connect it except for just, connecting all the stories together just to do everything all at once sort of thing. Is that like, do you still feel that same way about it?
No, I feel that same way. I think that for me, like we said earlier, that one more arc, I think could have separated this from their, from like that kind of episode 9 big fight.
Yeah. You could have made him like the sub-boss, right? Like a semi-boss. And like, say like if you have an act 4, he could have been your episode 10 fight. Vi and Jinx have that fight. And then you go to 11 and you set up like the finale. And then like you get like, everything finishing up in 12. But then you can also have a longer epilogue. And then like, you can kind of set things up a little bit better as well. That's kind of like where I felt they could have definitely used the 4th act. But the symmetry of the 2 seasons was, I guess, what they were going for. And also budget, I guess. But yeah. I was really bummed with Warwick's story. Honestly, like, I think like that entire storyline felt like it was being set up fairly well for Piltover was I forget which one was the underground city. Piltover. Zon was the underground. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like Zon's story needed a little bit more for resolution, and that would have only come through like Vi, Jinx, Warwick, Caitlyn a little bit. But like we don't get that. Everything just kind of escalated to almost like this world-ending sort of threat with Victor, which fantastic design for him and everything. But yeah, just generally it felt like they kind of the rush again, like it was a side effect of it. Still a fun finale, but I do kind of wish they had gone a different way with Warwick's story and design. But yeah.
I mean, while we're still on, I guess like specific champion stuff, there's 2 that I kind of want to, I guess 3 technically that I kind of want to talk about. But like 1, can't believe they did Loris like that. I was so surprised that that's how they decided to kill off Loris inside this in this series instead of like a more, I don't know, cinematic death.
Loris was he took the arrows, right, to the neck.
Yes,
yeah,
he took the arrows. Yeah, I thought that was such a fast death for a character that, like, he wasn't a main character, but like he was there enough that I thought they would give him a bit more of a shown death, or an elaborate death.
Yeah, bro. That's how minions die in the game.
Yeah,
just happens.
Yeah, no, that's like it's very realistic-ish death. But
it was a sad death. I think like they handled it nicely.
Sad. Yeah.
But also it just kind of, I don't know if that character needed a bigger death. I think it was a suitable death.
Yeah. The death that I think that I was the most mad at in this show is Ambessa. I mentioned like last week, I really, really like Ambessa as a character.
Yeah.
In this episode, I loved Ambessa.
She was really good.
I think like everything about Ambessa in this episode was so good. She is like pinnacle, she's exactly what I want out of like a warlord type character.
Warlord boss character, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think she played her very nicely.
Uh-huh. I honestly thought that... Sorry, I'm just gonna cough. Okay. I honestly thought that kind of towards the, latter half of 9, Caitlyn and Ambessa are about to fight.
Yeah.
And I thought this was going to be, kind of like a callback to... I can't remember which episode it was, but, Ambessa and Caitlyn were training together at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this was going to be, Caitlyn's triumph story. I thought, okay, Caitlyn like sucker punches Ambessa, and she's like, nah, I'm gonna run you the fair one. I'm gonna give you a spear. I'm gonna take a spear, and then we're gonna fight, and, student overcomes the master.
Nope.
No, woman. Like, this was... When I saw how badly Caitlyn Mel like tried to like jump Ambessa, didn't work. They had to like call in the third person. But during that whole fight, the one thing that I was thinking of was that stupid meme of like someone like posts, "Yo, I'm gonna go fight like so and so. I'll post a video later."
Like got hangs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, like either like, yeah, damn, dude got hands, or yo, I got my ass kicked. I'm not posting the video. Like that is all I thought for that specific like scene, and I was so sad that like Ambessa, I feel like her death was very like, it wasn't as big of a splash as I would have wanted it to be.
I think okay, so I'm gonna use this to transition to the next topic, the final topic, which is the future setups and the shows and stuff, right? I think her death was important to set up Swain, and I think it's important to set up everything that's about to come up with Noxus and the Black Rose, because I think that is only just kind of starting. And that is honestly the main reason I'm not upset with everything that they did with Mel. But they do have to have like another series coming out. They need to announce it, right? Like if there's nothing after this, then it's a bit of a shitty addition to the season. But time will tell with that. And I think like it seems likely.
Very recently, Riot had announced that they have another series in the works. They have confirmed that another series is going to be in the works. It being Noxus based, and I was kind of like reading through some topics, and some people were kind of talking about what they think it could be in terms of if they are, old League lore really isn't relevant when it comes to Arcane, but if they are using old League lore, chronologically, the next like major thing in terms of Noxus is like the Noxus versus Ionia or like Demacia.
It's
like,
the Ionian invasion.
They're fighting one of those specifically, and I feel like that is where they're going to introduce or dive more into the Arcane and magic stuff because of like how strongly linked like those things are.
Yeah, one of like the things I'm really looking forward to, and it's not just because I watched the lore video 20 minutes before we recorded this episode, but I would love for them to set up a bigger bad, right? So it seems like Mordekaiser might be who they're kind of building up towards, because there's already some heavy links, like game lore wise, with like the Black Rose and Mordekaiser, and with LeBlanc, who is heavily rumored to be the silhouetted person that we saw in the final few episodes of Arcane. So I think like if you set that up, it explains why Noxus is branching outwards, right? Like if you're trying to find ways to defeat Mordekaiser, if you're trying to, or if Mordekaiser, like, you know, you redo the lore and Mordekaiser is already back, and like Mordekaiser's backstory is basically like driving him to take over more countries and stuff like that, more nations. All of that stuff makes sense. But like, you know, I think like it could be any of that stuff told from the perspective, or like using Noxus as kind of like this connective tissue, like, you know, to tell the story for all these other countries. I think that's a great way to go. And like they could either go Demacia, they could go Ionia. I feel like if you go Demacia and Freljord, you're kind of telling the same story as you're telling what's on in Piltover. Whereas if you kind of go Ionia, you can try some new things out. You can go a little bit more in the magic realm and the mystique and, like, you know, things like that, right? So, and that could introduce, like, you know, Shivering Owls and like that kind of stuff. So, like, I mean, I think either way they go, I'll be there. But I'm really excited that they're finally introducing some of these other characters. The Crow is obviously Swain, so like that's a big one. Really excited for that. But with Swain, that also means we're likely getting introduced to Darius and, like, you know, that group of characters and stuff as well, who are fantastic characters. And I'm really excited. I want to see where this goes.
Same. Like I am very excited to see like what Riot is going to be cooking up for their next series.
Yeah, I hope they expand, like, in the amount of episodes. I don't think they need to do them as like 2-season things again. Take as long as you need to tell the story. I think that should be like, if you're going to learn anything as a studio from the Arcane experience, don't be tied down to a set number of episodes. Like, if you've got the budget, tell the story you want to tell in the episodes you want to tell it in.
I mean, I still think that like 2 9-episode seasons is a good amount of time, especially like since these are like usually 40-ish minutes on average, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's enough time. I think for me, maybe they just crammed too many storylines into Arcane is what I think the problem is.
I think I agree with you, and I think I'm saying more along those lines. If you have that many storylines, just take it more episodes. If you can, like, if you can do so, take the episodes. Just tell the story in the pace you want to tell it in. Last question. There's an art book. Apparently releases December 3rd. I already messaged Jaren about this one. Regular price $80. On sale right now for $45. The book is too big to fit on any of my cabinets. Should I go and get it?
Ooh, so you're saying you're gonna have, like, you know, where's this book gonna live? Is it just gonna live on like your coffee table?
My coffee table isn't really one I put books on. I use it, Odyssey, as like a multi-utility table, aka my dining table. it's not a coffee table.
League figs?
No, I don't actually.
Like league fig? Oh. I was gonna say you should put it inside like your display cabinet as, like, you know, a background almost.
It's not a bad idea. I do have an empty shelf. Maybe I would do it there.
Yo, if it's on sale, yo, grab it.
$45, I think. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, go in on it. Go in.
But then I'll have to buy like League figures and shit.
Yo, do it up. I'll
check out Prime after this. I'll see what's on for Black Friday.
I know how much you love Master Yi, so you know you can get your one Master Yi figure.
Dog, if Master Yi pops up in the next series, I might cry.
I don't know where Master Yi is from. I'm just assuming he's from the Asian one.
He is.
Wherever,
he is.
Like, you know,
where's Yasuo
League
from?
Asia is. League Asia.
League Asia.
I honestly don't know.
No, that's fair. That's fair. They're all from the
like,
same. Yeah, like it's League Asia. They're likely, like, if they do that, it's going to be Yasuo that they're going to focus on. But I just want Yi to be
probably
there. Man, I miss Master Yi. Jaren, you remember when you were a support character and I got a pentakill with Master Yi?
Yes, I too like Sekiro from Software Games.
It's one of the core memories of my
Sekiro.
life, and this guy doesn't even remember it.
Oh man, yo, for you that's a core memory. For Jaren, it was a
Tuesday.
Yep. And boys, that seems like that was Arcane. Second season out now. I guess both seasons out now on Netflix, which they probably hope that you watched because, as Matt said, what was it, 2.5 mil? Gotta get the most out of those views. But
Ionia. Sorry, Ionia is League Asia.
Yeah,
I thought Ionia was a different place.
No, Ionia is where all the League Asians are.
Oh, okay. I think I was just mixing it up with some other place then.
Fair. Speaking about League Asia, I'm looking at some Fortnite leaks right now. All the art for the next Chapter 6 Season 1 is coming out. Seems like it is Japanese inspired. Boys, what do you think about Godzilla and Baymax in the next season of Fortnite?
Is Godzilla gonna have a machine gun?
Probably.
Amazing.
Is Godzilla going to be scaled to Godzilla size
like
or
baby Godzilla
no?
size?
They'll scale him just like they did to Optimus Prime as probably the same size as your normal
That's
Fortnite
weak.
character.
That's weak.
Is Baymax going to be as wide as Baymax usually is? Because I feel like that's a disadvantage.
Yeah, like it's the
Do
weird.
they have
hitbox.
wide characters in Fortnite? I feel like they all have.
So, quick Fortnite aside, there was a season this chapter that had Peter Griffin, but it was the buff Peter Griffin. So everyone thought, oh, they're not going to do the wide characters, but they released the angry chicken from Family Guy as a character, and he's of a wide stature. So potentially, I'm looking at, but however, Matt, I'm looking at the leak photo right now. It's Baymax in the armor, not.
Isn't Baymax always wide though? Or maybe I'm just misremembering that.
Actually, I'll share it. I'm going to send this picture into chat. And before we go into this week's Don't Match Me challenge, what do you think of that art that I sent in our group chat?
I mean, it looks like Godzilla is Godzilla sized.
Also, it's
They can
it's,
scale him
It's
down.
like the Godzilla versus Kong Godzilla. His ray breath is not going to be as good.
So hopefully that means, considering they introduced shoes, we'll have Godzilla wearing Jordans in the near future.
That means we're going to get close to the Godzilla playing basketball comic book panel
That's
from like
exactly what
30
I
years
thought
ago.
of.
Okay.
he can join Cell, and they both can use the slam
Is-
dunk emote at the
Is
same
Charles
time.
Barkley in Fortnite?
Not yet. Shaquille O'Neal
Okay.
is. Shaquille, so we're almost there. We're almost there, Kat. He joins the likes of LeBron and Giannis, so who knows? Who knows? But hopefully we won't know what Matt is cooking up with this week's Don't Match Me challenge. Matt, take it away.
Yo, so I'm going to be running this week's Dumb Matching Challenge. As always, this is, a game that you, the listener, are going to be playing with us. And the rules are that I am going to ask 5 questions, and I'm going to give 5 answers. These questions will become, a bit more specific over time. All you have to do as the player is not match the answer that I give to the question. Of course, that's just the normal difficulty. If you want to play on a harder difficulty, you can try to not only match me, but not match, Jaren and Rakush. And, as always, remember, this is a podcast. So if you need more time to think, more time to Google an answer, just pause us because, we're always going to be at the end of that play button. So, bringing Cryptid this week, I decided to do a Don't Match Me themed around monsters. And, we kind of actually touched on my first question for this Don't Match Me, which is name any cryptid. When we were talking about cryptids, we ended up talking about a bunch of them. You just gotta name any cryptid. 3, 2, 1. I'm going with Chupacabra.
Okay.
Well, if you were listening, friends out there, I said the first cryptid to come to mind was Mothman, and Mothman still continues to be the first cryptid that comes to mind.
I'm going to go with the Jersey Devil.
Ooh,
Good one.
Good one. It's a good one. That's a good one.
That is a long-standing one in my childhood in terms of core memories. When I, too, met the Jersey Devil as a child.
Okay. So, going on to my question 2. This one isn't specifically monster related, but I still think it's like in the realm of weird. My second question is, name any animal that has been on the cover of an Animorphs book.
Ooh.
The Animorphs book covers are always, basically a character, a human transforming into an animal. I always thought those were, very interesting looking covers because I liked seeing, about like 2/3 of the way through how they looked. But the question is to name any animal that has been on the cover of an Animorphs book.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1, I'm going with my personal favorite one, the horse.
That is
Good
a good one.
That's a good one. Matt, you could have said name an animal because that's exactly what I rolled the dice with of thinking about the cheetah. So I put cheetah animorphs into Google and definitely a cover. So cheetah is my answer.
Would saying bees count? Because I'm seeing
Yeah,
a cover
I,
with bees
I
on
know
it.
there is
Okay.
a B one. Yeah, I like the B one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
When I write my questions, I have like 3 possible answers that I like decide to pick from at the moment, and B is one of the ones that I had written down.
The spider one is really
Good
good
choice.
as well.
Good choice.
Going on to, question 3. Very interestingly, we sort of touched on this topic as well. My third question is, name any titular kaiju that Godzilla has fought. Specifically, any kaiju that falls within the Godzilla versus, like, blank kaiju.
This is in my wheelhouse. I just got 2 prints for Godzilla recently. You're asking the right guy. Let's go.
Yes. So, name that kaiju in 3, 2, 1. I'm going with Kong.
Easy answer. Safe answer.
Classic.
Safe answer.
Is Mechagodzilla a valid answer in this question?
I would say so.
Because
Yes.
when I think of Godzilla fighting things, I always immediately think of Mechagodzilla because I love me a Mechagodzilla.
I'm going with Biolante.
I have no idea who that one is.
Biolante is... It's kind of like a more like plant-based, nature-based kaiju that came up. Really cool.
I see you're trying to trick the diehards, and you got
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Rakush.
Got 'em.
Good for
Because
you.
I am a diehard.
All right. So, going to question 4, sticking with my monster theme here. My question 4 is to name a Pokemon on the cover of any mainline Pokemon remake. So, they've done a lot of, remakes of Pokemon games, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Brilliant Pearl, Shining Diamond. They've done a lot of games in this kind of, a lot of Pokemon remakes recently, and I'm assuming they're going to be doing more in the future. And on the cover of all of these, they have that, like, Pokemon that represents that box, like the box art for that particular version of the game. So, the question is to name any Pokemon on the box art of any mainline Pokemon remake. 3, 2, 1. I'm going with Eevee for the Let's Go Eevee remake of Pokemon Red and Blue.
Oh, Matt. You almost got me because I originally was going to say Eevee, but
Ooh.
I wasn't sure if that's considered a mainline. So I got scared, so I changed at the last minute to my favorite, episode 1. Shout out to Ho.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay. Whew. Okay. I'm going with Charizard from Fire Red.
Hey, the classic. The
Yeah.
classic.
To be honest, I couldn't remember any
Safe-
of the other
safe
cover
prediction.
Pokemons. That's the issue.
All right. Now, the final question for my monster base Don't Match Me. In the cinematic classic of Space Jam, we have the, antagonist team of the Monstars.
Yes.
So my question is, name any basketball player whose talent was stolen by the Monstars in Space Jam.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
I think
Right.
I think I got an answer neither of you are gonna pick.
All right. I mean, there's only 5 answers here, so,
I'm hopeful.
Really,
I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic here.
yeah. All right. So,
Matt, I'm nervous just because I think before Matt reveals his answer, I feel like Matt's answer has one of 2. So
Okay, Jared, do you
Which
want to
is-
guess what his answer is and then who reveals his answer?
nope, that goes against Don't Match Me because I can't match Matt. So I'll say
Okay.
my answer, and then Matt.
all right. So, name that basketball player in 3, 2, 1. I'm going with the only basketball player I've ever seen in real life, Muggsy Bogues.
Fuck.
I knew it.
It was either him or Sean Bradley.
Matt. So in terms of what I thought Matt would pick, I thought you would definitely either pick Charles Barkley or Muggsy Bogues,
Ooh,
and
those are the 2 I have written down, Sharon.
and I was conflicted. I know I could go with. Wait, was Patrick? No,
Patrick Ewing.
yeah.
yeah, Patrick Ewing was
Yes.
one of them, right? I originally was going him, but had to go with Charles Barkley because I love Uncle Charles.
See, I was
Rakush?
okay. I was debating Charles Barkley, but then I name dropped him a few minutes ago, so I'm like, I shouldn't go with the same person. And then with Matt, it was either going to be Muggsy Bogues or Sean Bradley. I thought he was going to go Sean Bradley because he was tall and looks funny. But then Muggsy Bogues is short and looks funny, so it was kind of like a little bit of a coin toss. I lost the coin toss. I went Muggsy Bogues as well, so
Ooh,
damn.
got him. I think that is Rakush's first Don't Match Me loss, right?
I think second or third.
Ooh. Hopefully,
Damn.
you, the listener, have gotten through this monster-based Don't Match Me unscathed.
Matt? Nail biter there. Had some opportunities where I might have lost, but I somehow made my way through this week's Don't Match Me. Rakush, better luck next week, but so it goes
I'm going to try
sometimes
to go 0 for 5 next time.
here.
Just match all of them.
Just match all of you guys.
Can you match Matt? Guys, before we ended off, last Fortnite leak update, what do you think about Demon Slayer characters in Fortnite?
Yeah, sure, why not?
That makes sense. What's anything to do with the gun? He definitely has to come in, right? Like, if you are gonna bring in the Demon Slayers franchise and you're not gonna bring whatever his name is with the gun, you're missing out.
Matt?
Wait, are they gonna use? I'm assuming they're gonna bring in their swords, right?
Potentially as their back bling and or pickaxe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we've come to the end of the episode of this week's Mistake Zone, where I have to bid farewell for now, to my best friends in the Horde world, Matt Alba. Thank you for joining me this week, editing the podcast as always, and also bringing this week's Don't Match Me challenge.
Yo, thanks, Jaren. As always, thanks for hosting the episode and, sticking with your classic consumerism and buying controllers for systems you don't own.
Thanks, Matt. Want to also thank our boy Rakush for joining us this week, talking about some Yakuza, some Arcane, some Dandadan, and, pulling a gotcha on all the Biolante fans out there.
Man. We should do, like, Cryptids as Yakuza characters. Or, like, what Cryptids would make the best Yakuza sometime.
I need to play more Yakuza to...
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think it's, like, game characters. Just, like, who would make a good Yakuza member?
Oh, who
real
would be
life.
who would be a good cryptid to have in the Yakuza?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
mean?
yeah. What
okay,
Cryptids would you draft for your initial, like, crime syndicate?
I mean, Slender Man. He has the outfit.
See, Slenderman to me is more like a CIA, COINTELPRO kind of like, Man in Black thing.
You're essentially asking me which cryptid would look good with a sweet back tattoo. And that's all I'm thinking about now.
A dragon with a dragon tattoo.
While I go draft that up with...
Can you have non-Japanese cryptids in the Yakuza?
It doesn't have to be the Yakuza. It can just be a crime syndicate, and then you can figure out if it's like the Mafia, the Yakuza, the Triad, the Peaky Blinders, whatever. You can figure it out later.
Yes. Could be a Vault episode, and we'll see
A
when
Vault
we
episode.
open that bad boy up. I believe the Christmas season's coming up, so we might have to discuss what to do in that situation. That also means a year in review coming up as well. But until then, Matt, please take it away.
This has been Mistake Zone, and we're all out of Arcane.